Basketball season is right around the corner, so get your hoops ready for this slam dunk of a show. Hello, I'm Anna Gomez.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Our athletes continue to take home a boatload of weekly awards as women's soccer continues to shine. You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. We've got a jammed-packed show for you today as we prepare to say goodbye to fall sports and prepare for the new basketball season.
And later, we have interviews with 3 LaSallian icons to get insight and hear predictions on our men's and women's basketball teams.
It's going to be pretty cool. But first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Top 3.
Should have a harmony.
Top 3.
Anyway, number 1, it comes from men's basketball with this week's Sports Illustrated Top 100 projected scores for this year. LaSalle made it. And coming in at number 41 was LaSalle's Pookie Powell. SI projected Pookie to average 16.1 points per game, which is over 2 points a game higher than he averaged last year. Pookie showed his strong finishing power last year against Villanova when he shot 10 of 17 for 27 points. Then coming in at number 7 is the returning redshirt BJ Johnson. Johnson averaged 17.6 last season while playing the last month of the season with a broken hand. The senior adds this to being a named preseason All-A-10 second team.
Number 2, women's basketball's Amy Griffin is looking to continue her stellar career as an Explorer. The senior was recently named to the conference preseason first team. Griffin led the A-10 in scoring as a junior, averaging 19.7 points per game and ranked 25th in the NCAA. The women's team itself is projected to finish 7th out of 14 teams in the A-10. Last year, Jeff Williams' team finished 6th in the A-10 with a conference record of 9-7 and an overall record of 17-13. The team will rely heavily on veterans like Griffin to lead the team offensively this year.
And number 3, our women's soccer team has truly just been an absolute source of joy for us here at SportsLine. So it is incredibly exciting for us to announce that head coach Paul Royal was named A-10 Coach of the Year. This is Royal's 4th time winning the award in his tenure at LaSalle after leading his team to an undefeated record in the A-10. 7 Explorers also received postseason honors. Maddie Bowell, Kristen Hogstad, and Paige McDowell were named to the conference first team, while Macy Bauer and sophomore Taylor Newhart earned second team honors. Freshman Amira Luketis and Jenna Soriano were named to the all-rookie team. So, without further ado, let's look at how our teams fared this past weekend. Our SportsLine team helped to pack the MAC for the women's soccer quarterfinal this match against Dayton. Let's see how it all went down.
The LaSalle women's soccer team faced off against Dayton in the first round of the A-10 tournament October 28th. The Explorers came out firing, with Macy Bauer sneaking one past Dayton's goalie Kayleen Johns for an early 1-0 lead in the 3rd minute. Macy gets the ball off a bad touch and places it perfectly on the short side. The Flyers never backed off, creating many scoring opportunities, but senior goalkeeper Larissa Zambelli prevented them from scoring, having 3 saves in the first half. Kristen Hogstad added to the lead in the 33rd minute off an assist from Madison Bauer. The Explorers went into halftime with a 2-0 lead, but that lead did not last long, with Michaela Livingston from Dayton crossing the ball to Alexis Keel to score in the 56th minute. The Explorers and Flyers proceeded to split scoring opportunities till LaSalle's Jess Shanahan scored with what seemed to be the clincher in the 83rd minute. Shanahan got the ball from Macy Bauer, ran down the left side, and scored on a short side. However, Dayton refused to back down when the other half of their sister duo scored in the 85th minute. LaSalle was able to hold off another goal in the final minutes to win 3-2 and will play Duquesne on Friday, with the winner going on to face the winner of VCU versus St. Joe for the A-10 championship on Sunday. For SportsLine, I'm Steven Silvestro.
Men's soccer lost a heartbreaker on senior night against St. Bonaventure, where they were slightly bested by the Bonnies. Isaiah Clark has the coverage.
On Saturday, the LaSalle Explorers took on the St. Bonaventure Bonnies for a chance to make it into the Atlantic 10 Championship Tournament. In a competitive game, the first half would end without a goal from either side. The first goal of the game was scored by the Bonnies on a throw-in that was headed past goalie Mark Tobin in the 70th minute. The Explorers kept up the attack throughout the remainder of the game, outshooting the Bonnies in the second half 6-2. They would finally score on senior John Hansen's diving header with less than 4 minutes left in regulation, evening the score to 1-1 and sending the game into overtime. The game had to enter a second overtime to finally be decided on a goal scored by St. Bonaventure that came in the final minute of the second overtime. The loss knocked LaSalle out of tournament contention and dropped their record to 2-5 in conference. For SportsLine, I'm Isaiah Clark.
The men's soccer team traveled to Davidson on November 1st, where they were able to round out their regular with a 2-0 win over the Wildcats. The win ended the men's season with an 8-9-1 overall record. The Explorers' first goal came in the 48th minute from senior midfielder Ryan Nork, while the second goal came from an absolute rocket from Sixtus Ekinlosotu. The Explorers were also helped by goalies Mark Tobin and Sebastian Stelmack, who combined for the shutout, making a combined 6 saves.
And it was the battle of the Georges for the women's volleyball team as they took on A10 contenders George Mason and George Washington this past week. Starting with George Mason, LaSalle bested the Patriots 3-1 as the offense made a remarkable effort picking up the victory. Sophomore Devin Core acquired a season-high 20 kills in the contest, while Madison Cook was just one shy of 20. Cook also had 2 blocks, along with Brianna Davis and Catherine Edgington. Just half an hour away from George Mason, LaSalle then traveled to the nation's capital to take on the Colonials of George Washington. The Colonials downed the Explorers 3-1 in a vigorous match played by both teams. Devin Cora led the team with 14 kills, while Brianna Davis and Madison Cook followed Cora with 14 kills each. Catherine Wood collected 41 assists on the match and attained a career high of, get this, 1,000 assists.
Field hockey hosted Towson on Friday, October 27th. Tegan Lamont has the coverage.
The field hockey team took on Towson at Hank DeVincent Field in their last home game of the season on October 27th. The Explorers came out firing with 2 goals in the first half. First from Amber Blackshear in the 8th minute of the game, and then from Riley Allen in the 26th minute. The Explorers tacked on 2 more scores in the second half, this time from Eileen Zwill and Jess Hoffman, who had a whopping 3 shots on goal in the contest. This was a dominant performance by the Explorers, who ended on at a 4-1 result. For SportsLine, I'm Tegan Lamont.
The women's field hockey team finished their last weekend of play on Sunday in Washington, D.C. against Georgetown University. Unfortunately, the Explorers did not end on a high note as they fell to the Hoyas by a slim 5-4. Georgetown started the game with a quick goal, but LaSalle freshman Riley Allen answered with the equalizing goal. Georgetown netted 2 more goals, but not without another goal from Allen to make it a 3-2 contest. The fourth goal by Georgetown was answered with a goal from LaSalle's Mackenzie Karcher for her 10th goal of the season. Senior April Stein tied the matchup at 4 just 2 minutes into the second half, and it would take until the 50th minute of play for Georgetown to put their final goal into the cage and defeat LaSalle 5-4. The team ended their season with a 3-5 conference record and a 9-8 season record.
Cross country had a productive weekend in the A10 Conference Championship. Starting with the men's team, 3 Explorers were named to the A10 All-Rookie team after being among the top 7 freshman finishers in the race. Ryan James finished in 17th place with a time of 25 minutes and 54 seconds. Billy Byrne was the next freshman to finish the race, coming in 31st with a time of 26 minutes and 18 seconds. And finally, Joe Boyle was the final freshman finisher, coming in 55th with a time of 26 minutes and 48 seconds. The Explorers were the only team to have multiple freshmen earn a spot on the All-Rookie team. Meanwhile, the women's team finished 8th in the championship. Sophomore Grace Mancini took the spotlight with an 11th place finish that earned her spot in the All-Conference team. Mancini finished the 5K in a time of just over 18 minutes.
The rowing team splashed into the Schuylkill this week in the head of the Schuylkill races. The women's freshman 4 squad fell just 1 second behind the squad from Pittsburgh to finish just outside the top 10. The Championship 4 and Championship 8 boats finished in the 29th and 33rd respectively. For the men, it was the freshman 8 that led the way with a 3rd place finish, earning them the bronze with a 14-minute 19-second finish. The club Championship 8 races, the Explorers had 2 teams. the first finishing its 22nd place while the other placed 28th.
Swimming and diving got their first taste of the A10s this Halloween weekend as the team competed against the likes of Mason, Duquesne, and St. Bonaventure and St. Louis. Fabian Bergman had the performance of the tournament in the 200 IM when he took first in more than 4 seconds ahead of second place. Clinching the title, he also as well clinched the title first in the 100 IM and in the 200 back. Hannah Elliott of the women's team earned herself 2 top 10 finishes in the 500 back free and the 800 back.
Well, that's all we have for recaps, but excitingly enough, our very own Steven Silvestro sat down with the one and only Coach G from the men's basketball team. Take a look.
Donnie Carr is a LaSalle and Big Five and Philadelphia legend. He scored nearly 2,200 points. He's in the Big Five Hall of Fame. He's in the LaSalle Hall of Fame. And Coach Carr applied for positions when I first got here. And I didn't know him nearly as well then, but I also said, you know, Donnie, why don't you go out and get some experience? And he absolutely did that. He's coached in high school. He's coached at the highest level of AAU. He's coached in Division II and III. He's coached in Division I, and he's really made a nice career for himself. And I've gotten to know him, and I've become tremendously impressed with him over the years. And he's good for our players. It's really more important for an assistant to be good for the players than good for me. So Coach Carr is a role model. He went to school here. He's a wonderful man. He's was a great player. He has a great work ethic. He's a little bit younger, so he's closer with the guys. Coach McGlynn used to be our video coordinator here, which is a very highly specialized thing. You just do all video. But then he went to NJIT as their operations director, so he got that experience with travel and managing a staff and managing a team and all the things that go into it academically, medically, and all the non-practice development. Coach Carr and Coach McGlynn are both huge additions. I'm really glad BJ went through the process because the NBA has a draft committee who tells people who are interested in declaring exactly where they stand, what they have to work on. So BJ got great feedback, and he knows what he has to do, and he's highly motivated. And I think he learned a lot going through the process in terms of what the NBA thinks he has to do to be a better player. The key guys for me and the way I was thinking were Isaiah Dees and Salle, period. They didn't play much as freshmen, but they were very talented. And Saul and Isaiah knew that in recruiting, that we had some older guys, but their opportunity would come. I think by far the biggest jump comes from freshman to sophomore year. I don't know if the average fan knows it, but these kids are here 49 weeks a year. They don't go home for the summer. They stay here all summer. They're lifting, they're doing skill development, they're getting ahead in school. And both those guys, Saul in particular, really transformed his body. He's much stronger, but yet even lighter. And he really got himself into fantastic shape. And Isaiah was just a matter of learning defense, learning the discipline of this level. So I just think Isaiah's at a higher level of maturity and experience. I think Saul is at a much higher level of physical conditioning and experience. And they're different players. I'm really excited about them. They're looking good. Most freshmen, we think, as I said, are going to take some time. And we thought that with Miles Brookins, and he turned out to be an exception. I always tell recruits it's either going to be what I tell you or better. And in Miles' case, it's going to be better than what I expected. He plays like a veteran. He's been wonderfully coached. Coach McKnight and the Modern Day high school program out in California is one of the best high school programs in the country. They play a national schedule. They every year have multiple high major players. They have had multiple NBA players. So Miles has been really well coached. He's played great competition, not only in his high school schedule, but also within his high school team. So he has been a huge eye-opener. We knew he'd be good. We had no idea he'd be so good so quickly. So just like Isaiah and Saul, I think those guys are going to make a big jump from where they were when they came to LaSalle to a year from now, because they've never done the full-time strength, the full-time video, the full-time skill development, or played. In high school, you play against teenagers. You don't play against 21, 22, 23-year-old men. So everything is different, and it's a learning process. So we are pleased with their character. I'm pleased with their talent, but they have to learn this level and how mistake-free you have to try to be to win these close games against these really good teams. Kean's been here for a year. The plan for Kean was to redshirt and then back up Tony and Demetrius for a year and then compete for a starting spot. So Kean is still on track. He hasn't played. We thought he needed a year to get stronger, which he did. He's put on 20 pounds of muscle. When you're 7'2", sometimes that doesn't show quite as easily, but he is much stronger and he's playing much better. But we look for Kean to compete for one of those top spots in the year. But he'll help us this year. All three of them will help us this year, but they're just starting. What I found, and I correctly predicted that last year's team was very talented. We were 11-5 and 5-1, and we were frankly outscoring people, but we weren't tough enough defensively. And when Pookie got hurt, we could no longer outscore people, and our defense was never that good. But when our offense took a dip, that's when we really started to struggle. And so early in the year, I just wanted to play the hardest workers. But what I found with some of the young guys was that there was a big difference between how they played in practice and how they played in games. And that the best guys in practice weren't necessarily the best guys in games. So we kind of went and got more of a conventional starting lineup after learning that. And I think everyone in life has plans, and sometimes you have to adapt your plans, and we did that. And we were starting to have success with it in spite of our defensive shortcomings until Pookie got hurt. And then, of course, BJ got hurt, and we found out that BJ played the last half of the season with a broken hand that he had surgery on right after the season. So to be good, you have to be talented like we were last year, but you have to be pretty tough, which we could have done a better job of, and you have to be lucky, and you have to stay healthy. That's because the best team in Philly always goes to the NCAA tournament. If you can beat Villanova, Penn, St. Joe's, Temple, you're a tournament team. We've done the research, and it's well over 90% of the time the best team in Philadelphia is an NCAA tournament team. So you don't have to worry about Illinois or Florida State or Arizona State. If you can beat your rivals here in Philly, you'll be a postseason team. We have to do better in those games, and I think this year's going to be a really good year in the city. LaSalle has a lot coming back. St. Joe's has a lot coming back. Temple has a lot coming back and adds Josh Brown, who's hurt. And Villanova has another terrific team, and Penn has everyone but one starter back. So last year, I think the city overall was a little bit down, and I think this year the city's going to be back up again. We want to get to the NCAA tournament, which you have to be one of the best teams in the country to do that. It's, there's 350 Division I teams. And the way the system works, you get certain automatic bids from teams that might not be one of the top 64 teams, but there are certain conferences, and I think it's a good rule where those conference champions get in no matter what their RPI is. So that NCAA tournament, when you disregard some automatic bids, is really for the 40 best teams in the country out of those 350. And that's always going to be our goal. And now, I'm not big on expectations. I'm big on reality. I think until you play other people, you don't know how good you are. You could say you're optimistic, which we are. You could say you're excited, which we are. But until you line up across from someone else and play, no one really knows. So we're just eager to prepare for that opportunity and for when that opportunity comes to see how good we are. And ultimately, we want to be back in that NCAA tournament. I mean, that's the goal for every college basketball team. And if you're not shooting for that, you're not striving for something memorable and exciting.
Thank you, Stephen. Now moving on, President Colleen Hanisch is one of the biggest sports fans here at LaSalle's campus. We sat down with our fearless leader and athletic director, Bill Bradshaw, to see what their predictions are for our men's and women's basketball teams. Check it out.
Well, I will give the unexpert opinion first.
Okay.
They're going to do great. They are a very fine group of young men. They're working hard. And I think some of them have got something to prove this year, and I think we will see that on the court. So I'm very excited to see how they do.
We were picked 9th by the coaches in the league for the men, and I think 7th for the women. And I believe both are a little bit underrated, which is better than being overrated. So I think maybe our players feel they have something to prove. And by being picked so low, maybe that's just the incentive they need. Well, BJ has elite talent. He's got terrific vertical leap. He's very fast moving down the floor. He's quick with the ball. He's a terrific shooter. He goes to the basket. I believe it's how much better the other players around him will be, particularly our seniors, that will allow him to get better percentage shots. So I watched a couple of practices and seen BJ love to pass the ball and help his teammates. And I think the more he does that and becomes an all-around player, the better our team's performance will be.
Agreed. And BJ, of course, being one of our many talented seniors, is hoping that the NBA will want to take a good look at him, I'm sure, at the end of this year. So he also will hit the court with a real view towards being his best possible self all season. So God willing, there'll be no injuries, and he'll have a great year along with everyone else.
Dr. Hanich and I were talking about it earlier. We think that Amy and BJ are a lot alike, and they're both seniors, they're both elite players, and they're both going to be counted on to carry a lot of the scoring and rebounding for the teams. I think the women are going to miss Jasmine Alston. Jasmine's numbers weren't the most biggest ones for everything, but she was very scrappy. She got loose balls and she rebounded and was kind of the glue for the women. So it's going to be interesting to see how she does. And much like that, I think Pookie Powell will help BJ very much, that they won't be able to concentrate on him. So we have a terrific inside in BJ and outside in Pookie in terms of scoring.
For me, as still a relative newcomer to this market, there's nothing like a Big Five game, especially a Big Five game at the Palestra. Now we'll have the opportunity to play a Big Five game at Wells Fargo this year, which will be pretty exciting. I've never been there for that, but my heart's really when we get to play in the Palestra. Yeah. So I look very forward to Penn is the first
at the Palestra.
Yeah, so really looking forward to that. But certainly we gave Villanova a very good chase last year, and I'm looking forward to a repeat of that this year, for sure.
For me, it's kind of the opener. You know, it's like a holiday, and you're looking forward to it, and there's much more to come.
Absolutely.
After that, to play St. Peter's on November 11th at 3 o'clock, which is we're calling our home opener, is exciting to think about. And I think we'll kind of get a look at our team to see our strengths and weaknesses, and hoping we get a great turnout of the students on that. And for the women, their first game is going to be November 22nd, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It may be difficult for students to go, but they'll have plenty of home games after that. And the game, and I think I'm with Dr. Hanich on that, the Big Five games, because you have fans from both teams at the facility, much like an NCAA or a postseason game. And they're very exciting. The league games are more important to us, obviously in January and February, but there's nothing like a Big Five game, and no matter how good the other team might be, like last year, Villanova's defending champions, and we're at the Palestra, and it's our crowd, and it's national TV, and there's 1 minute to go, and we're down 4. So, you know, that's pretty exciting. We've got Temple at home on the Thanksgiving Sunday, so hopefully the students will come back for that, and Penn at the Palestra, Villanova at the Wells Fargo. It's going to be a great season.
It's funny, the first time I was in the Palestra, I had the great pleasure of speaking with Mrs. Gola, of course, widow of Tom Gola and Mrs. Carolyn Gola. And she said, "This is your first time in the Palestra?" And I was newly appointed here as president. I said, "It was." And I said, "It just is amazing walking around here and what you can feel." And she said, "My dear, it's all the ghosts." She said, "All the ghosts of great men like Tommy and many others around him." And she said, "That's why I like coming back to the Palestra." She said, "Because I feel very close to him and to all of those great players." So I thought that just about said it all.
Absolutely does. And we'll be there for Penn and then Wells Fargo, obviously. And hopefully we can talk Fran Dunphy class of 70 into letting us throw streamers at the Temple game when we come back for Thanksgiving on that Sunday.
But I agree with Bill. The November 11th game at 3 p.m. against St. Peter's is really our opportunity to tell the world what we mean and what basketball means to us. And so Bill and I can be there jumping up and down all we want, but we need some strong student turnout at that game just to simply put a stake in the ground and say, we're back. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
It was just the most exciting thing.
There you go.
That I saw. And I was a baseball player, so basketball wasn't my sport. And I'm a student coming here, going down to the Palestra, watching this happen, and it just takes over your soul and your body and your being and your emotions when you're there. And that's what we're hoping that the students get, and that we're able to perform to the level in those games to create that kind of excitement. But I think for the alumni, for the students who are here now, their parents, for the community, for Philadelphia, when we're playing a big time school, all of Philadelphia is rooting for LaSalle.
That's true.
Like they would for a professional team. So we have all that responsibility when they're there, and that means a lot when we're playing a national opponent.
And I think if we think of athletics, and this is an overused expression, but if athletics is the front porch of your university, then surely the front porch of LaSalle's university is basketball. That is our marquee sport that is divided between a men's team and a women's team. But when you talk about LaSalle around the world, that is the first thing that comes to mind for people. So for our students and for our alumni, getting together in Tom Gola Arena, which is a very historic place for us, and celebrating that shared collective sense of pride in watching a group of young men or a group of young women perform to their absolute best, that unites all of us in a way that few things do. So I have observed that in a short period of time, what a bond basketball is and what that is for our alumni community and our student community. It's great to observe that. So there's two parts to it. First of all, it's just part of LaSalle's pride, LaSalle's history, and LaSalle's legacy. So they need to come and be part of that, not because of what they will give by coming and showing up that day, but from more for what they will take away from that. And that sense of pride is so strong. But the other thing that is very important to me about our students coming to those games is that they're supporting other students, that they have their peers down on the court, whether they're on TV or not on TV, doing their very best to bring pride to the school, and they need to support that in the same way that they would support their students and their colleagues in any other way. So I hope to see lots of them. I don't miss very many games myself, and certainly it will be great to see a huge turnout on the 11th.
Well, we here at SportsLine are super excited about the season, so all the students should be as well. Definitely come out.
And for us here at SportsLine, that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't keep up with this weekend's other sporting events, keep up by visiting goingsports.com or check out this week's edition of the Collegian.
Also, check us out at Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Twitter at SportsLineLTV. We welcome you to send us your thoughts and suggestions there.
For Isaiah and our SportsLine team, I'm Anna Gomez.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you at the game.